Hello, I'm Mayor Barbara McMorrow, and on behalf of Deputy Mayor Lester Preston, Committeeman Anthony Amiano, Tom Cook, and David Salkin, I welcome you to From the Mayor's Desk. And with us for today's program, we're very fortunate to have Valarie Hemhauser, who is Executive Director for the Legal Aid Society of Monmouth County. So you're thinking, what is the Legal Aid Society of Monmouth County? And that's exactly why I've asked Valarie to be here with me today, so that we can explain to all of you what the Legal Aid Society is, and hopefully you will share it with family and friends and anyone that is in need of the type of services about which you will hear in our program today. Valarie, thanks so much for being here. I know that you're busy. Not only are you Executive Director of the Legal Aid Society, but you are an attorney and you have your own caseload. And I appreciate your taking the time to be here to talk about really this wonderful organization that needs to be out in the public domain. There's so many people who need the services. So let's start with, what is the Legal Aid Society? How did it begin?
Well, Barbara, thanks so much for having me. I do appreciate the opportunity to showcase the services that we provide at the Legal Aid Society of Monmouth County, and it is my pleasure to be here. The Legal Aid Society has been established since 1952 by Monmouth County attorneys as well as community leaders to provide free legal services, pro bono legal services, to those in our community, Monmouth County, that are at the lowest economic rung, so to speak, and the handicapped. So we recognized a need back in 1952, and presently we are still fulfilling our mission because there is even nowadays a greater need for free legal services.
Yes, and that's what pro bono means. It means without charge.
That's correct.
So as the program goes on, you're going to hear about what the attorneys do, what kind of cases the Legal Aid Society handles, and at the end of the show, we will have contact information for you. So if you don't have a pencil and paper or computer with you at this point, don't worry about it. There will be contact information later on in the show, and you'll know how to get in touch with the Legal Aid Society. So you are the Executive Director.
Yes, I am.
What is that?
Okay, so the Legal Aid Society is composed of lay trustees, people from the public, people that are in the Bar Association that are attorneys, and then an Executive Director and the officers. The Executive Director, which is what I am, is the person that oversees the day-to-day operations within the Legal Aid Society. I am there part-time. I am at the office 2 days a week. I do maintain my own private law practice when I'm not there. But my job is to go in there and just meet with clients, keep the office running appropriately with all the office, so to speak, things to do, and assign cases out to attorneys if they qualify under our guidelines. So the Executive Director is essentially the manager of the office. The rest of the society is a board made up of, as I said, lay people as well as attorneys. There are, from the Monmouth County Bar Association, 18 trustees. Of the 18 trustees, there has to be at least 12 lawyer trustees, and the balance of them would be lay people. We have an officer committee, which consists of the president of the organization. We have a vice president, we have a treasurer, and then we have a secretary. Every 2 years, the officers change out, as well as the executive director. I've been doing this position for the last 3 years. So as an executive director, I could continue to rotate year after year if my work in the organization is running smoothly. Whereas the officers, they get replaced every 2 years. They come in a new group. Normally, the officers would just go back to being trustees. So the group of people that we have is a very devoted group of volunteer lawyers and community people, similarly to how the organization was established back in 1952. The procedures at the Legal Aid Office are the same as they've always been. A client that has a need for legal services will contact our office, and there is in the office a part-time administrative assistant. She's there from Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And she'll answer the phones, and when she's not there, the machine will pick up the messages and she'll answer them when she comes back in the next day. They call the office, and the administrative assistant will ask the client what type of case it is to be sure that it's the type of case that we handle. And I'll discuss that in a moment. And also to be sure that the client is a Monmouth County resident, because we only handle cases within Monmouth County, and we only handle cases for people that reside in Monmouth County. So that's the first thing that she'll ask. Then she'll ask some basic information about their financial circumstances. The Legal Aid Society develops a financial criteria, and the clients that come to us that become approved, they have to qualify under our guidelines, which are essentially about 200% of the federal poverty guideline standards. So by way of an example, and the administrative assistant will ask, how much money do you make per year? Are there any other household members in the family that contribute to the overhead? Their incomes would be then considered as well. But by way of an example, a two-person household, today's guidelines, one could not make more than $32,480. So living here in New Jersey with that type of money, you could see that there is truly a need for free legal services, considering the cost of litigation these days, and also considering the fact that our litigation generally has skyrocketed. There's a lot more litigation today than there was certainly 10 years ago.
Certainly when it began, Legal Aid Society began.
Absolutely.
Great deal more.
Absolutely. So after they are essentially vetted initially over the telephone, and it seems like they might qualify, then they're scheduled to come into the legal aid office, and then they would meet with me. One of my jobs is to have an interview with the client. They're asked to bring in multiple pieces of paperwork and other types of financial information so that I can review it and to see that we can indeed verify them under our guidelines for free legal services. Because once they are approved, they are then assigned to a Monmouth County lawyer. So we want to make sure that the clients coming in truly are in need, desperate need, for free services, because our lawyers are accepting this work on a pro bono or free basis. They're not getting paid for their services, and these are top lawyers in the county. These are lawyers that are very seasoned, they know what they're doing, and they do it because they're volunteering. They're doing it because it's their way too of giving back. Our Monmouth County Bar Association attorneys make our organization a success. But for them, volunteering their services, our organization would not exist. So my job is to make sure that the people going to these very generous lawyers truly are in need according to our guidelines. They would be asked to bring in paperwork such as, and this is something that the administrative assistant would tell them that they would need to bring in for my review, their last year's tax returns, W-2 statements, 3 current pay stubs. If they didn't file taxes for whatever reason, then a Social Security earning statement showing their work history pay. They would ask to be brought in their checking account statements, and if they're collecting some sort of social welfare or disability, a determination statement as well, so that I could take a look at all of that information when I interview them and say, yeah, okay, this all fits in within our criteria or not. If I can, and they don't qualify for free legal services, then what I would do in that case is to speak with them and try to direct them to an organization or an alternative to help them with their particular issue. Recently I had a case where someone came into the office and they were well above the guidelines. For whatever reason, they had an appointment scheduled with me, but they were beyond the guidelines. But I was able to direct them as to how they can go about getting particular forms down at the county courthouse, and where they can go for further information if they needed it. In addition to that, I also directed them back to the Monmouth County Bar Association, because there is an attorney referral system in the courthouse. And there are many attorneys that, although wouldn't work pro bono because the client wasn't deemed indigent or poor under our circumstances, they would still work with these people under a sliding scale. So there's a lot of lawyers in our county that do that as well.
And we're very thankful
We
to have them.
Absolutely,
Very thankful.
absolutely.
You had mentioned that the person would have to live in Monmouth County, have to meet financial guidelines. But what about the venue of the case?
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, they need to be the Monmouth County resident and be here and living here, not just saying that they're Monmouth County resident. They have to have proof of that they actually are. And the case has to be venued here. There has to be filed here or within Monmouth County. So for example, someone coming to the office, they want a divorce, let's just say, and they live in Monmouth County, they would be qualified for the divorce. If they're responding, however, to a divorce, let's just say that the spouse had already filed the divorce papers, but the divorce papers were filed in a different county, let's just say Ocean County, and they're coming to Monmouth, they live in Monmouth County, they're coming to have defense of that, a complaint for the divorce, they would not qualify, unfortunately, because the case was venued already in Ocean County. So we're very specific because we don't want to send our volunteer attorneys to outside counties. So it has to be, a person has to live in Monmouth County, and they also have to have the case in Monmouth County.
And they have to qualify in the financial guidelines, and they have to be documented.
That is correct.
So all of that. Now, you talked about also different kinds of cases.
Sure.
And I know that I have some, there is a flyer that you will now see around Monmouth County from the Legal Aid Society. And it lists the different kind of cases. We're going to speak about them now. And it gives a great deal of information. So if you see this around Monmouth County, you'll know what it is. And please take note of it. So the different ones that you have here: bankruptcy, divorce, child custody, support, visitation, family law enforcement and modification, tenancy matters, and foreclosure. Bankruptcy is the person has no more equity, no more money.
They have no money to pay their debt, and so they're looking to declare bankruptcy. And so one of the first things I ask someone when they're coming to us for a bankruptcy is, how much money are you looking actually to declare bankruptcy from? Because if it's a minimal amount of money, and there are people that have a $2,000 debt, let's just say, and they want to declare bankruptcy, I tell them that, that you might want to reconsider, because once you declare bankruptcy, it impacts your credit rating. And, unless it's really no other way out, usually you want to have a larger amount of money to declare bankruptcy from.
That's a good point.
And also I say, is there any other way that you might be able to resolve this before you declare bankruptcy? Because again, it impacts your credit rating and has consequences down the road, such as contacting the creditors and seeing if you can work out maybe a reduced amount to be paid back, and then perhaps a payment schedule. So these are kind of things that I will talk about with the client. But if they come to the office and they have a large amount of money that they need to declare bankruptcy from, and there's no other way out, then they would be a very good candidate for bankruptcy. I then look at their paperwork, and then we send them out to a bankruptcy attorney in Monmouth County. We try to fit the type of cases with attorneys within the Monmouth County Bar Association that do that type of work. So these, again, are not just any attorney, but very qualified, very, very experienced attorneys.
That was a good point that you just made, because the attorneys who are volunteering their time and working pro bono are attorneys that specialize in whichever one of these fields
Yes,
the client needs.
that's correct.
So it's not where you're being sent just to anybody in the Monmouth Bar Association. It's to a very specific attorney who specializes in a very specific area. And really, you're getting top-notch attorneys, and the Monmouth Bar Association does a great job with that. They really do. Divorce, I think, is pretty standard. The viewers would know what we were talking about. Child custody.
Yes, a lot of times, custody, I'm a family lawyer by practice, I've been doing this a while, and custody are the most difficult of all of the, in my opinion, are the most difficult of all the family cases, because obviously you're dealing with people's lives, little, lives that have a lot more life to them. And so people come to us for various reasons under the term custody, perhaps to gain custody, perhaps a couple they weren't married, but they're now separated, and one person has the children most of the time and the other one doesn't. They have to come up with a custody order, even if it's a consent order or a court order, an order just dictating who has the children, so that everybody understands the rights and responsibilities for the children. So that's one type of case where the person comes to establish the custody, and the person that usually has the primary residential custody means that the other parent will have some form of a parenting schedule, and they'll be the parent of alternate residence. And that should all be put together in a court order, which is what we would help the client get to by assigning them out to an attorney. Because again, the parents and the children need to understand rights, responsibilities, their expectations and anticipations. Another type of custody would be where the custody order had already been established, but something's gone wrong, or maybe not, changes have been made in circumstances. So client might come and say, I want to have custody of my children, primary custody, because of whatever. So they might come for a change in custody. Or they might just come with some sort of variation with the parenting schedule, which is considered part of the custody as well. So instead of having one parent have 60% of the time, the other 40% of the time, they might change that up to a different percentage. And that's all different things that could be done in terms of a modification application to custody. And a lot of people come to us for custody and parenting issues. And I believe that that's a very important type of case, and very important that it's done properly and equitably and fairly for the benefit of the children, for the best interest of the children. The other type of cases that we do in family, besides the divorce and the custody, is support, both spousal support as well as child support. And again, some form of visitation schedules. A lot of times people come and they don't have any kind of parenting time, and they want it. One parent does not have the children, the other parent's always coming up with some reason why the children can't be on this particular schedule. So one parent might come and say, okay, I need something definitive, at least for the time being. These schedules can always change as circumstances predict, but parents need to understand, and the children need to be able to anticipate that they're going to be able to see this parent or that parent. So a lot of issues come up with custody and visitation and parenting time. And quite frankly, I think at the legal aid office in my 3-year tenure, I find that the majority of the cases that come to us are in fact family. That's not to say that we don't do other work as well. We do, but it just so happens that in Monmouth County, during my tenure, that's been the prevalence of type of cases that we've had.
And it's great that you're there and that you also have a background. So happens
Exactly.
that you have a background
Yeah.
in that area to help. You mentioned tenancy.
Yes.
What would that be?
Okay, so somebody might be being evicted from their apartment, not paying payment of rent, or some other issue. I had a case that came to us not that long ago where a person was receiving Section 8 housing, and her grandson had gotten into some kind of trouble, and so he moved in with her for a temporary period of time, and there were issues with that. Someone reported it to the landlord. There was only supposed to be one tenant in there. So we sent this person out, they had qualified, to work out an arrangement, obviously a very reasonable settlement, like this child was not going to stay here for this period of time, and to just work the whole thing out, because otherwise, without that, a lawyer getting involved and writing a letter, maybe making a few phone calls, it was going to go into a true eviction process from the Section 8 and disqualification of their benefits. But as far as other types of tenancy matters, people sometimes fall into rearages with their rent for multiple reasons. And a landlord has the right to go and send out an eviction notice and start that whole proceeding. But many times there's a reason for the lateness in rent, or many times there might just be a need for a deferment of the eviction so that these people can get their act together, get packed up, and make arrangements for an alternate place to live. And so people come to us for those type of matters. So it's essentially people that rent and people that have an eviction forthcoming imminently. We do some foreclosure stays, which means that if you own a home, oftentimes you may not qualify under our guidelines, because if you are able to own a home and have home equity in it,
Right.
then
how can you qualify?
Right. So the people that come to us for foreclosures are those people that own a home but have no equity. They're usually underwater with the house, and the banks come in to take the house away. So there's not a whole lot that you can do with making that not happen, but for delaying it. So we do some of those as well. We do some foreclosure stays, deferring the foreclosure so that these people can get someplace else to live, get that whole thing lined up and ready to go so they can make a smooth transition.
And that's important, so that, you're right, instead of it being so fast,
Yes.
hopefully they've come to you with enough time so that you can try to do something.
Absolutely, because if they come at the last minute, then obviously there's not much to do. Preferably if you come to the office, or if you initiate something in defense earlier on, you may even be able to make up some sort of a payment schedule with the bank, with the mortgage company, and vary that up a little bit and stay in your own house. But that type of arrangement would only be able to be made in the earlier parts of a foreclosure proceeding.
So really, with any of these cases, the sooner they can contact legal aid and find out if they qualify, the better.
Yes, yes.
Because if they wait too long, even if they qualify, sometimes you might not have enough time to get done what needs to be done.
That is so true, particularly with the bankruptcy, if they're ready to go into court, or with the foreclosure, the tenancy. With the family matters, however, there's a little bit more time to move around, because the courts are very reasonable. And so if you have a hearing coming up in 2 weeks and you just come to the legal aid office, we could send something out to the court and just indicate that they were just in the office and that we need some more time, and the court's very accommodating, provided that it's the first time that they've requested some kind of an adjournment. But nonetheless, the better rule of thumb is the sooner you get to the legal aid office, the better off you are. It gives us more time to evaluate your case, to work with you, to get you the best lawyer that we possibly can, and for that lawyer to have as much preparation time as they need to make your case a successful one.
That's a good point too, because they need to do their homework.
Absolutely.
And that takes time as well, because they also have their other cases that they're doing in their practice as well.
Very
So
true.
we talked about cases that you do take. What about criminal cases? Does legal aid take criminal cases?
No, we don't.
No.
And the reason for that is because we have the public defender's office. That'll handle most of that. And
Right.
if it's in the county, it's the county public defender's office. If it's a municipal level situation, then there's public defenders within those municipal courthouses as well.
So any viewer who has a situation where they qualify financially for assistance, but it's a criminal matter, they do not call Legal Aid Society, they would contact the public defender's office.
Yes, and the criteria at the municipalities as well as in the county, I'm not familiar with, but it's not the same as our criteria. Our criteria is just for the Legal Aid Society.
So what about fee generating cases? Now, for, again, our viewers, that would be, say, there's an automobile accident and, you're suing, and there's insurance and there's money that you're looking to recoup for your losses. Do you take that type of case?
No, we do not. But what we do is defense of those same civil cases. So if, for example, you're being sued for property damage, what have you, we will sign out for those cases as well.
Oh.
Yeah, but no fee generation cases. We don't work for fees. However, that's not to say that a client can be asked to pay office costs for the attorney, and they usually don't run more than $100, if that, and that's basically to cover the cost of postage and photocopies and that sort of thing. But other than any other types of fees, there's nothing obtained by the attorney, but the fees that the client may be asked to pay would be those office costs. And getting to fees too, in a matrimonial matter particularly, the fee filing is very expensive. It's $300 for a complaint for divorce, for example. So if you are deemed indigent, that means within the poverty level that our criteria has set forth, that you would be provided with a letter so that you don't have to pay those filing fees.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're excluded from paying all filing fees, whether it be a complaint for the divorce or a motion fee or a complaint for whatever other court costs.
Because that could be thousands of dollars, can add up.
Well, it could add up. The complaint for a divorce is $300. An answer is $175. Motions are $50 or $30. It depends on what court you're in. But yeah, all these fees add up. Absolutely.
And if they have the financial need, legal aid refers it out, and the most they would have to pay then would be maybe $100 towards fees that are minimal.
Yeah.
Minimal.
Yeah.
That's really very good news.
It's a great service. It's a great service, and it's a service that puts that population at an equal footing, so that they can go into the court and they can feel confident that they're getting the protection and the representation that they may not otherwise have had.
And when the client is in court, nobody is aware that the attorney is a legal aid attorney.
Absolutely not.
Right, so when you go to court, if you have contacted Valarie and you've met with her and you qualify, you have an attorney from the Monmouth Bar Association who is a well-respected attorney who goes in to represent you as he or she would with any other client at all.
Absolutely.
So please don't feel that there would be a stigma attached. There is none, and no one is aware of it except you and the attorney who's representing you. So I want to clear that up as well. And,
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, there's no way that they would know that it was.
No, I had a case myself where I was actually the lawyer being assigned. This is prior to my being the executive director. And it was a divorce case. It was very protracted, very long, very complex, not very nice. And I went in there and we did the case. We successfully concluded the case. Everybody was happy at the end of the day, and nobody knew where I came from in terms of whether my client was paying my fees or not. So it is all very discreet, and there is no reason for anyone to feel embarrassed. Our mission is essentially to provide services to the people that need it the most in our society, again, to keep it at an equal footing.
Yeah, it's great that you do it.
Thank
So
you.
now, I have a question of, we do all of this for free, and yet I know that you have an office space, and we'll talk about where that is located. And there is, you do have help in the office, you know, there is a part-time salary, I think it is, or full-time?
She's part-time. It's Monday through Thursday, 10 to 3, so it's 20 hours a week.
Yeah, but she does get a salary, there is some expense.
Okay.
So how is that funded?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that question is the same question that we have every year since 1952. We get, presently we're in space, we have space given to us at the probation division in Monmouth County. It's in the same huge building as the social services is located, and that's in Ocean Township. So in there's two sides to the building, one social services and the other side is the probation division. We are gifted by the county with a little bit of a space, a little cubicle, really not that very large, perhaps a little bit bigger than this table, where we do our business, and we don't pay for that, fortunately. But what we do pay for is the administrative assistant's salary. There are other office expenses, our postage, our mailings, our paper, our whatever little publicity that we can generate. Recently we did a flyer, a brochure, but we get gifted for the most part with our main office expense. The means to fund all of this is always challenging and has been for years. We don't receive any money from the state of New Jersey whatsoever, and some people that come to the office mistakenly think that we do, and this is a service that the state provides, but it's not. It's a volunteer service, so we don't get any money at all from the state. Where we do get our money is from the Monmouth Bar Association. Again, lawyers like myself, we contribute to our dues, and some of that dues money goes to pay for us. We get a small stipend from them. We also have money coming in from the Monmouth Bar Foundation, which is a separate entity, where, again, we contribute as lawyers to this foundation, and monies are given to us from there. So the Monmouth Bar and the Monmouth Bar Foundation. In addition, the freeholders of Monmouth County have been generous enough to give us money over the years, and so we are very thankful for that. And then in the last couple of years, we've been also very thankful to receive a grant from Investors Foundation. Investors Bank has a foundation, and I just applied again for 2019. We're keeping our fingers crossed, because essentially that's the entity monies that come in to fund our organization. Now, in addition to that, we have many fundraisers throughout the year. We, at the Bar Association dinners, we have 50/50s, for example, or we might raffle off an iPad that's been generously given to us. Or we have a very nice event each September. It's a wine tasting event. That's one of our biggest fundraisers. It's held here in Colts Neck. The public's invited to come and taste wines all night long. There's a piano player, there's fabulous food, and we generate a lot of money from that. So it's things like that. We have a beach bash in the summer. We have, we're thinking of new ideas now, perhaps some of the younger members want to do a hatchet throwing fundraiser or whatever, but
whatever that is,
yeah,
right.
We have a fundraising committee which comes up with all these different ideas, and then we kind of figure out if it's a viable option and it's going to generate some money. We did a wreath sale for the holidays a couple of years ago, so we're coming up with all these different things, because even though we are gifted with the office space, we still have a great need for money, and we don't have a stable source, if you will. I mean, a commitment by the state, for example. We used to receive monies from IALTA, which is an attorney trust account collection. How to describe this? Attorneys have to pay into this IALTA account from their interest-bearing trust accounts, and that money is accumulated, and it generates a lot of money, quite frankly, in the state of New Jersey, and it's divvied out to various institutions. We used to receive IALTA funding, is what it's called, up until 2014. Well, 2014 was our last year that we received, and for reasons unknown, we haven't received any IALTA funding to the present time, and that was a huge disappointment. But we have been thinking of better and more profitable fundraisers, though, in the interim to
And
make
these are
up
the board, who are all volunteers, are
Yeah.
also doing all the fundraising and working on that, in addition to what the Monmouth Bar Association
Yeah.
does for you, and the Monmouth Bar Foundation and the Monmouth County Board of Chosen Freeholders. So everyone's giving a little to keep
Yes.
you going.
Yes, yes, and the board is a real energetic group of people, young, old, lay people, attorneys, just a fabulous group of people that are just completely volunteering their time and their services. They're either lawyers or some of them have backgrounds in marketing. They're helping out in that end. Whatever they can do, all volunteer, and they contribute money too. Some of them will contribute perhaps an iPad or an iWatch to be raffled off, or just monetary donations. I mean, it's just a fabulous group of volunteer people trying to do fabulous things for other people in our community that actually need these services.
And you are a 501c3.
Yes,
I
we
thought that
are.
was important to note also.
Nonprofit, 501, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So if anyone wanted to donate, they could contact you, and they could just make a donation to the Legal Aid Society
Yes.
of Monmouth County.
Yes, that would be, and of course, because we're a nonprofit organization, you can use that as a tax deduction as well. And at the end of our talk here, we'll have information as to where we're located and our mailing address for that purpose, as well as a phone contact number.
It's a great organization.
Thank
And
you.
you're doing good work for people who need it.
We're happy, yeah, we're happy doing it.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you were able to come and visit with us today.
My pleasure.
I hope that our viewers have learned a great deal. I know that I did. I knew quite a bit, and I learned even more today. There's always something more to learn. The Legal Aid Society is constantly evolving with the times. I know that you're always going over your bylaws and always going over everything so that you stay current
Yes.
with society as society changes and needs change. And I'm so appreciative of what you do as the executive director and what the board does for the members of Monmouth County who need you the most. And I'm also very thankful to the members of the Monmouth Bar Association who volunteer their time.
And I'm thankful for you for having me here, because every bit of publicity to let us know, let us tell you what we have available to you, and let other people in the community know what we're doing is very much appreciated. So thank you again for the time here.
Oh, it's really my pleasure. And again, we're in Freehold Township. I know sometimes the show is in other municipalities as well, but you are throughout Monmouth County. So if you know anyone in Monmouth County who is in need, even if you're not sure whether they qualify or not, call and let Valarie, let the office know.
Administrative assistant.
And, right, and they can look into it and they can tell the person whether or not you qualify. And if not, as you said, which is something that I learned, that you can often guide them where they can go
Yes.
to facilitate their legal needs. So it's not where if you don't qualify financially, that's the end of it. Sometimes there's still a road you can travel.
Oh, totally, absolutely. We actually interfaced with over almost 1,700 residents last year alone.
Wow.
1,700. And not that they were qualified, most of them weren't. A fraction of them were, though. But regardless, we interfaced with them. So even though they may not have qualified, they were directed or instructed or hopefully given some assistance in order to resolve their issue.
And that in itself is helpful, because sometimes you might not need an attorney. You might just need to go someplace and file the papers on your own. Some of that you can do,
Right.
or speak to someone to help. So don't give up hope. If you need legal assistance, Legal Aid Society, again, the qualifications are the criteria, and that you do have to meet. But if you're not sure, please don't hesitate to call the Legal Aid Society of Monmouth County. They're there to serve and to help, and we appreciate it so much. It's really a great job that you're all doing. So now, when someone says to you, what is the Legal Aid Society of Monmouth County? You know the answer. Thank you again for coming, Valarie. I appreciate it so much. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful way to spend the time to learn so much about what's so needed in our community.
You are welcome.
And so until next time, this is Mayor Barbara McMorrow saying, stay safe and be well.